Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes. Thank you, Dan. That was it was really fascinating. And some of the things I'm going to talk about cross over. Some of the aspects of my own work are engage with questions of paranoia and of how the body is in relationship to the state and to imperceptible things, numinous things. And so first of all, I wanted to talk about very briefly, I'm going to show you a 3-minute excerpt of the film Glowboys that was in the Atomic exhibition. And just very briefly, this film came about through 2 years research and my research was both kind of official research, working with meeting health physicists and going on official guided tours of nuclear facilities, but also I stayed in pubs around the nuclear reactors where the contract workers would stay and played pool with them and shared jokes. And their jokes this was the interesting thing, that the jokes were all of this same level of dark humour that was shared with the veterans of the first British nuclear tests in the 1950s, who I also spoke to in the process of this research. And I suppose the film relates to that, to the conversations I had with these contractors, but also to some of the books that I was reading around that time, which was, for instance, Dr. Faustus, Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, and Moby Dick, and Beckett, and Ovid. And so what I meant is that there's a lot of kind of cultural input that preceded nuclear power that still dealt with questions of imperceptible danger. So let's have next. So this was the inside this is where I shot the film, in Oldbury nuclear reactor. It was used as a stage for several films. I think there was Blake 7 was shot there, science fiction, space. But so the scene I'm going to show you is this scene in the canteen of the nuclear reactor, and the idea is that it's a 24-hour canteen, so shift workers could go and eat something, whether they were working night or day shift. It was still the same service, and the protagonist, who's called Clint Loop, is being commented on by the caterer's song. So,
Hurry up, the 8 o'clock conductors and you want to have a breath.
Yes! And now a special song for Clint. Mom will take his ball and with its head father says before, leave them with Clinton eggs, chips over limbs of red. Ask me time together, I'm a caterer, I am the caterer. sang together, go bucket caterer. And Mom will take her spoon, and with its head I want in instead. I want in instead. Or after, leave it with me. Sign together with caterer. Caterer. Caterer.
My God, look, it's one of our boys from over the reactor. The poor little mite.
So, I don't know if you could hear the lyrics of the song. It says, like, and Mum will take her spawn and with its head find a cesspool. So it's kind of, there is a sort of thing about disposal there, which is something, you know, very harshly stated. And and at the end, he's not actually killed by the by his proximity to radiation, but to the surrounding economy that everyone in the area was involved in, which was a fictional economy of poachers trying to shoot mutated birds from the nature reserve surrounding the reactor. It has a sort of dark comedy that, like I say, shared some of the kind of attitudes of people that were working in the nuclear industry on the kind of blue-collar level. And he also, I suppose there's enough, I didn't, you know, I gave information to the singer to write, to the songwriter to write the song. And so we spoke quite at length about the kind of attitudes, and so the caterer metamorphoses into que sera sera, so it's like that. I think now we're going to look at the film that some of the research also involved, like I say, talking to veterans they were called the British Nuclear Veterans Association, and they were people who had survived the working as merchant navy or actual navy people in 1953 to 56, the ones I met, that were working at Operation Mosaic and Totem and Grapple, which all have great names, and they happened on just off the Australian coast in the Christmas Islands and the Maralinga, and this information sort of it wasn't really fitting into what I wanted to make for Glowboy, so I made a second film which was called Midwatch. That the title is the name of the watch on a ship that's from midnight till 6 a.m. And the film is shot in infrared, and so nobody can, neither myself nor the actors can see anything. It's in pitch darkness, and only the camera can see what's going on. So we had to kind of use our intuition to find out where everything was. What else can I say about that? Oh yes, and that the actor in it is. The way that I came to work with this was that there was the same songwriter that was in Glowboys that works in a way where my kind of working method with him was that I would feed him with information, with the interviews from the veterans and with texts that I was reading. And I'm going to quickly read you a section of Moby Dick, which kind of brings up some of the questions and possible attitudes between somebody who is utterly determined, that's Ahab, and something which is kind of a imperceptible or not quite perceptible power. And it's in the middle of a lightning storm in the ocean, and he's searching for the white whale. And he says, the rods, cried Starbuck to the crew, suddenly admonished to vigilance by the vivid lightning that had just been darting flambeaux to light Ahab to his post. Are they overboard? Drop them over, fore and aft, quick. Avast, cried Ahab, let's have fair play here, though we are the weaker side, yet I'll contribute to raise rods on the Himalayas and the Andes, and all the world may be secured, but out on privileges, let them be, sir. Look aloft, cried Starbuck, the corpusants. All the yardarms were tipped with a pallid fire, and touched at each tri-pointed lightning rod end with 3 tapering white flames. Each 3 tall masts were silently burning in that sulphurous air like 3 gigantic wax tapers before an altar. Aye, aye, men, cried Ahab, look up at it, mark it well, the white flame but lights the way to the white whale. Hand me those mainmast links there, so I would feel this pulse, and let mine beat against it, blood against fire, soul. Then turning, the last link held fast in his left hand, he put his foot upon the Parsi, and with fixed upward eye and high-flung right arm, he stood erect before the lofty tri-pointed trinity of flames. O thou clear spirit of clear fire, whom on these seas I as Persian once did worship, till in the sacramental act so burned by thee, that to this hour I bear the scar. I now know thee, thou clear spirit, and I know now that thy right worship is defiance. To neither love nor reverence wilt thou be kind, and e'en for hate thou canst but kill, and all are killed. No fearless fool now fronts thee. I own thy speechless, placeless power, but to the last grasp of my earthquake life will dispute its unconditional, unintegral mastery in me. But the midst of the personified impersonal, a personality stands there. Though but a point at best, whensoe'er I came, whensoe'er I go, yet while I earthly live, the queenly personality lives in me and feels her royal rights. But war is pain and hate is woe. Come in thine lowest form of love, and I will kneel and kiss thee. But at thy highest come as mere supernal power, and though thou launchest navies of full-freighted worlds, there's that in here that still remains indifferent. O thou clear spirit, of thy fire thou maddest me, and like a true child of fire, I breathe it back to thee. Sudden repeated flashes of lightning, the 9 flames leap lengthwise to thrice their previous height. Ahab, with the rest, closes his eyes, his right hand pressed hard against them. And this was it was kind of similar in some ways to the account of these guys on board the ship watching these first nuclear tests. I said, what did you have to do? And he said, we were ordered to stand up on deck and turn with our backs to the blast. And they said if there wouldn't have been a blast, I would have been bloody annoyed because I was in munitions. And so the attitude was like that. let's watch the film and then I'll say something else.
A decrepit old warship lies in harbour. It has recently arrived and crew disembarked. Waves lap against its metal hull with slow thuds. Loose rigging clanks against steel. The ship groans with each wave. Bolts have been loosened by the past voyage.
You may not understand this, but these two people you've just heard are clanking against steel and their ship groans with each move. Their voices may sound panicked, but their bolts have been loosened in the past voyage, which is the caterer.
I sensed him in here earlier. He was lying over there in the corner. Someone had put a bed out for him. He was making a glow noises. Some bolts are even at me. No chance my brain had affected the white bolts.
What? You mean John? He was up there in quarantine when I met Peter Johnson, wanting me, the scoffers.
Persian. I heard this fat tail slap. Its fat ass run against the floor as it trotted across again. Rainbow legs, the footfalls sound human, but the rhythm is too liquid fluid.
That's John up there in quarantine. For Christ's sake, why didn't you join the disembarkation? There's nobody here to cook for except MPs and the ship's doctor. And that bastard's on a permanently liquid diet.
Dehydrated fish, that's all.
Let's get out of here, for fuck's sake.
Ron, what is it with you? In my time, when Nelson ruled the waves, would it sail round the back of the Cape Horn?
Look, I've been stacked up on this ship for 2 fucking
You'd have been lashed to mezzanine.
350 people on a river ship. I should only fit 109 on, eh?
What?
Sharing space with fucking nuclear capacitors and all that kind of shit. This shit wasn't even fit up to pick up drowning cattle in the front of it a couple of years ago. Yeah, they're putting us on it, aren't they, eh? Fucking get out of here. Get out of here.
This luminous man is in my kitchen. What's going on here? Look at this.
These are worse conditions than in Nelson's time.
In Nelson's time, you wouldn't even got any conditions. Can you swim, Bob? Can you swim?
If needs be.
Well, nobody in Nelson's outfit ever used to swim.
Yeah, keels and all that ungrown and quarter.
Nobody in Nelson's time ever used to be able to swim. That's why I want everything. It's same round the car home.
Yeah, but we're not in Nelson's time. It's 1950.
Yeah, well, we're ready to leave the
We need
ship
to
and
sort
get out of
things
the
out.
ship.
What? You mean John? He was up there in quarantine when I met Peter Johnson, wanting me, the scoffers.
When you look at the scaled fish that we would glad fillet, consume in the olden days of the sea.
Yeah, sometimes you have to eat that, don't you?
Sometimes. Dehydrated, sometimes with pressure.
Well, you're the caterer, give us something different.
Sometimes, as a boatswain, do you not wish or aspire to the Persian lands when one-eyed Moby came towards you, when the pressure of the Lord laid heavily on you, and the Aryan and Persian seas were more attractive with their balmy waters?
We just want some decent food.
When their balmy waters appealed to you, laddie, when any whipping was like one of the preconditions irrelevant to your collimator. When man could go home through the Gulf Streams,
You know
go
these.
round the Cape Horns,
You know these are worse conditions
and disregard collimator and rainbow legs and the translucent whatever it is.
That's because they've done too
With the
many
morbid
trips.
deck, yeah, okay. So
Rainbow
deciding
legs.
on
Flipper
three-man
feet.
jump ship like Frank
Deformed.
Fronto. Radioactive what?
Flipper feet. Rainbow legs.
Flipper feet, there was more animals in
They worked for the
time,
company for too
strange
long.
animals coming out of the air. And it was more than radioactive. It was rum and it was sailing over like a boat swaying. Sailing over like a boat swaying in Delaria.
Next on Midwatch, commands from Aldermaston to throw equipment overboard, not normal procedure. The ship bends and buckles around Cape of Good Hope. Diversion as soon as invaded. Morph John's bleeding rainbow legs. Caterer and Ron disembark with pure gold mutant collimator.
So there is a in this film. It's I intentionally took a poet and somebody who used to be a merchant seaman, and the guy who plays merchant seaman is called Steve Evitts, who's recently been in Looking for Eric and Pirates of the Caribbean. And but so what I wanted was for somebody who was steeped in a literary history to engage with somebody who had experienced life on board a ship, and there is this something that comes up, which is this question of a battle between a or a question of geographic how to say, like progress to power and subatomic progress to power that's kind of mixed up in the two of these things. And there's also things like I think there's a relationship. There's a reference to Hamlet in it, where Hamlet's there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Not the same Horatio as Nelson, but he says, the caterer says there's more. I think there's more there's more things in the sea in Nelson's time. I can't remember. But so there's these kind of things connecting those things. But what? So more recently, I've made a work that's a kind of three-dimensional diagram of the Geiger-Marsden experiment for the that was to in order to discover the structure of an atom. That prior to Geiger and Marsden's experiment that Ernst Rutherford oversaw, the atomic structure was, there were two kind of main models, and one was called the plum pudding one, where there was a kind of general solidness of consistency of I think it was of negative charges with a negative soup with positive charges in it, isn't that right? With like little berries in a plum pudding. But what this one, this is a diagram of the thing that what it set out to show was that as alpha particles, which are positively charged, were bombarding a piece of gold foil. That he used gold foil because it was a material that you're able to make so it was kind of nearly 1 atom thin. Well, thin, not no. It was kind of the thinnest material that he could get his hands on. And so he bombarded this gold foil with the positively charged particles, and for previous experiments they would imagine that these particles would be deflected by positive charges in the soup of the plum pudding thing at equal kind of angles. But what happened is that some of these charges came straight back, which meant that they hit what was considered a relatively kind of massive positive charge, which was then deduced to be the nucleus of the atom. And I'll just read you what Rutherford said after that. It was quite the most incredible event that ever happened to me in my life. It was almost as incredible as if you fired a 15-inch shell at a piece of tissue paper and it came back and hit you. On consideration, I realised that this scattering backward must be the result of a single collision, and when I made calculations, I saw that it was impossible to get anything of that order of magnitude unless you took a system in which the greater part of the mass of the atom was concentrated in a minute nucleus, and it was then that I had the idea of an atom with a minute massive centre carrying a charge. And so Rutherford's, so this was in 1908 to 1913, and before relativity, but what it did was open up ideas that material was not solid and had big gaps between it, and then led on to ideas that we were made out of energetic charges, that our matter is not as solid as we would expect. Thank you.